We're continuing from yesterday evening, the beginning of Canto 7, Chapter 9. So let us begin with Prana mantras to Prabhupada. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Nityanamihe Namaste Saraswate Deve Gaurani Rajani Nirvisheta Srivani Paschatade Sakani Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Bhakti Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Most wonderful section, one of the most wonderful sections of the entire Srimad Bhagavatam is the pastime of Lord Nrsimha Deva's appearance, which we're honoring very soon, next week. So this is a little, first we'll begin with a little overview of these chapters of Canto 7. There's 4 sections. First, Hiranyakashipu. This is a discussion between Narada Muni and Yudhisthira. And Yudhisthira is asking questions and Narada Muni is writing nice answers. It seems that one might think, not Yudhisthira think, but one might think the Lord is partial. And he's favorable to a devotee and not favorable to the non-devotee, and he's partial. So it's a nice discussion. And the conclusion is he's not partial. He simply reciprocates. And this section, just before this section, Prahlada, he's the virtuous son of a vicious father. For the whole situation, Prahlada being born, and how he was trained or educated by Narada Muni, and although he was 100% pure, his father wasn't. His father tried in so many ways to destroy him, vicious father. And we're reading from chapter 9, which is in this third of 4 sections. Nrsimha Deva appears. He appears in chapter 8. Chapter 9, which is what we're discussing, Prahlada speaks various prayers to the personality of Godhead. He becomes pacified, more than pacified, he becomes very happy. And the conclusion of the whole canto is a very involved discussion. Again, it's Yudhisthira and Narada, the 4 social orders and 4 social classes for an ashram system. The reason for presenting this is the context of chapter 9. It's nice to see where it fits. And yesterday evening, we covered the first 8 verses, which was a little introduction to Prahlada's prayers. And the introduction to Prahlada's prayers just reviewed from yesterday. After dismantling Hiranyakashipu, Lord Nrsimha Deva was still very angry. Not just very angry, he was roaring. And those persons who wanted to see Lord Hiranyakashipu destroyed they saw the demigods witness. They wanted him to be destroyed because he was terrorizing the universe, including the demigods and everything that the demigods were overseeing below them. So they were happy that he was destroyed, but the destroyer was roaring with anger. And so the beginning part of chapter 9, this demigod, that demigod, the other demigod, they offered prayers, but his anger wasn't pacified, still roaring. So they requested the goddess of fortune, Lakshmi, the consort of the personality of Godhead, and he's the personality of Godhead. And what we heard, she had never seen this form before. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains it's an eternal form. And in the previous day of Brahma, she saw that same form. So twice she has seen the form. But Leela Shakti arranged in such a way that she forgot. And seeing that form, she was afraid. So she didn't say anything. She was timid. And then finally, Lord Brahma approached. Prahlada, he appeared because of you. So you please approach him. Very nice, that's the scene. And now we're ready for the first set of prayers. And this set of prayers, 9 through 12, that's what we're discussing today. There's a theme, and the theme is there's no material qualification needed for bhakti. Now he, Prahlada, was and is a pure devotee. We heard yesterday that when Lord Nrsimha placed his hand or paw on his head, he became completely pure. We discussed what does pure and completely pure mean. And symptoms of ecstasy by the touch of Lord Nrsimha's hand. And he was now ready to speak because he was asked by Lord Brahma to speak and empowered in an ecstatic mood. So this is the message. He starts with humility. Here's the first of this series. How is it possible for me, who have been born in a family of asuras, to offer simple prayers to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead? Even until now, all the demigods headed by Lord Brahma and all the saintly persons could not satisfy the Lord by streams of excellent words. Although such persons are very qualified, being in the mode of goodness, then what is to be said of me? I'm not at all qualified. So we discussed this yesterday. It's fine to repeat it. And there's many examples from scripture. But exalted Vaishnavas don't feel exalted. In fact, they feel the opposite. We discussed this. Brihad Bhagavatamrita, Narada Muni's approached different persons. One after the other said, no, I'm not qualified. Go to this person, they're qualified. He goes to this person, he sees this person is super qualified. Then he glorifies them and he said, no, I'm not qualified. Here's my disqualification. Go to that person and so forth. They keep getting passed along to a more exalted. And each of the more exalted persons is feeling not exalted. This is a subset of the mood of an elevated Vaishnava. We didn't discuss this yesterday, but a nice example, amongst many nice examples, is Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, because he was Kavi Raj, he was the king of Kavis, learned poets, and because of his eloquence, and because he had heard again and again and again and again and again the recitation of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes in Puri from Raghunath Das Goswami in Radhakund. They were next door neighbors, so to speak. Their bhajan kutir were proximate to one another. And Raghunath Das Goswami had heard and been trained by Swarup Damodar. Swarup Damodar was intimate associate of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Puri. I mean, intimate associate means as Lalita is to Radha, so Swarup Damodar was to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So he not only knew his activities in detail, because he had first-hand experience of them, but he understood his heart, his emotion, and transcendental explosion of ecstatic love of Godhead. He understood it thoroughly. And he explained everything to Raghunath Das Goswami, because Raghunath Das Goswami was assigned by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, you be trained by him, and he trained him. And then Raghunath Das Goswami went to Vrindavan and ordered by Rupa Goswami to speak every day for several hours the pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that none of them experienced while they were in Vrindavan. He was with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Puri, being trained by Swarup Damodar. In other words, the combination of right understanding with profound appreciation of Lord Chaitanya's mood and his gift as a Kavi, Kaviraj Goswami, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, was requested by all the Vaishnavas, write it down. Because you know, but future generations won't know unless it's written down. And you're a Kavi, you're a Kaviraj, so you please do this service. And he was feeling not qualified. He writes in Chaitanya Charitamrita, more sinful than Jaghai and Madhai, and lower than a worm in stool, but ordered by the Vaishnavas, and given the verification or blessing of Madan Mohan, I'm writing. So that's a nice example. The example of humility exuding from the person who is qualified. So Prahlad, this is his first words, and this whole section is his qualification is not material. It's not birth, and it's a lot of things it's not. We'll hear some more detail. But the principle is humility, looking at, here's this, as you see in the painting on the left side, there's, of course, his spiritual master is in the painting. Next to Lord Shiva, there's Narada Muni, who was the spiritual master. And he's supposed to do something, and Lord Brahma was the spiritual master of the spiritual master. And he's supposed to speak. The identification is there in the mode of Buddhists, but they're transcendentalists in that assembly, not just mode of Buddhists, demigods. So what to speak of me? I'm not at all qualified. So this is the introductory verse to this section. And here's Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's commentary to this particular verse. By bhakti, the Lord would be satisfied, and was satisfied, and appeared because of his bhakti. And thus, the power of bhakti, the extraordinary power of bhakti, is being inferred by his words. And paraphrasing his mood, I have a trace of bhakti by the mercy of Narada, and this must please you. Now he's not saying that, he's speaking humility, but it's implied because, again, as we said yesterday, he's one of the 12 Mahajans. He's one of the 12 topmost authorities in all of history on bhakti, Prahlada. So this is authoritative and it's instructive to us. It's not us, if there's some bhakti that's in us, some bhakti that's in us is given by somebody who was carrying bhakti and we just said yes, and we received it. And that's what's attractive to the personality of Godhead. Here's the next verse. One may possess wealth, an aristocratic family, beauty, austerity, education, sensory expertise, luster, influence, physical strength, diligence, intelligence, and mystic yogic power. But I think even by all these qualifications, one cannot satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead. However, one can satisfy the Lord simply by devotional service. Gajendra did this, and thus the Lord was satisfied with him. So Prahlada is educated. I mean, he was educated by Narada within the womb, who knows the details and details and details that while he was in the womb, he heard. Now, most of us probably don't remember what we heard when we were in the womb, but somehow Prahlada is able to remember. And, including details about long ago history. We all know the Gajendra Moksha Leela. And who was Gajendra, the elephant, before he was Gajendra the elephant? He was a great personality that got cursed to become an elephant. But so that what was Gajendra in his previous life? Uh, See you later. Much later. Few years probably. Gajendra, before he was an elephant, he was cursed to become an elephant. And he had forgotten in that elephant body, he had forgotten. But when he was in this very, very, very difficult condition, his life was at risk, he remembered. And when he remembered, the personality of Godhead appeared. And holding a lotus in his trunk, he offered transcendental prayers. Who knows what the sound of an elephant offering prayers to Vishnu would have sounded like, but wonderful prayers to Lord Vishnu. The remembrance came because of past interaction, past qualification, and the circumstance of urgency. The remembrance came. So like Gajendra, his body was not elegant, wasn't high birth, wasn't so many things, but Gajendra was able to attract the personality of Godhead, who came and protected him with the Sudarshan chakra. He shot the crocodile or the alligator and saved his life. So similarly, he's likening himself to Gajendra, lowborn, etc., and protected in many circumstances by the personality of Godhead, not because of material qualification, but spiritual qualification or bhakti qualification, and even a touch of bhakti, at least by his own humility, a touch of bhakti. Next, if a brahmana has all 12 of the brahminical qualifications, but is not a devotee, and is averse to the lotus feet of the Lord, he is certainly lower than a devotee who is a dog eater. Not was, but is. But who has dedicated everything, mind, words, activities, wealth, and life, to the Supreme Lord. Such a devotee is better than a brahmana because the devotee can purify his own family, whereas the so-called brahmana, in a position of false prestige, cannot purify even himself. Now this is an important verse, and it's the statement being made in this verse is like the essence of the section. There's no material qualification, pre-qualification for bhakti. And rather, bhakti supersedes material qualification or disqualification, or the lack of qualification. Bhakti supersedes it. Now, there's mentioned here, and it's briefly touched under the purport, did a little research, so some of you probably have received a little document with this Sanat Sujata. It's not referenced, like where it's from, but this is where it's from Mahabharata. And the 12 brahminical qualifications, this is the message within the purport. So there's 12. Dhyanam, Satyam, Dhamma, Shrutam, etc. There's 4, and then there's 12 brahminical qualifications. Prabhupada doesn't give the translation. He doesn't give the source other than saying a book known by the name Sanat Sujata. It's not exactly a book, it's a section of Mahabharata. And these are the 12 brahminical qualifications. You can take a look at the document to get a little more of the background. And it's slightly different in Mahabharata, only slightly different. It's the same essential meaning, but the Sanskrit is slightly different. But so this is reference to the verse. Supposing someone who has all these 12, that's a big list. And to get those 12, training and purification and elevation, it leads to elevation in the mode of goodness. Now supposing one has all of this, mode of goodness, and all these decorations, along with the mode of goodness, supposing there's somebody that has all that. But supposing that person is not a devotee, because that's what the verse in Prahlada is saying, supposing someone has all 12, but they're not a devotee, then such a person can't save themselves. They can't purify themselves. They can purify themselves in the mode of goodness, but the purification, that's the message of the Bhagavatam and the message of Prabhupada is the same as the message of Bhagavad Gita, beyond the modes of nature, which is the next one of the upcoming references. I'm sure you will be Vicharena, right from the purport. But Krishna's message and Prahlada's message, they match. Same message. There's a stage of purification that's beyond the modes of nature. And these are elevations in the quality of goodness, brahminical qualifications, but not a devotee. Such a person can't purify. So the purification is very similar to different. The language is different, but very similar to the description in the Bhagavatam of the cowherd boys playing with Krishna. Krita, Punya, Punja. Your Prabhupada lectures, and you know that phrase because he says it over and over. Prabhupada had great admiration for the unique gift that the cowherd boys had, which was an ecstatic outburst in the middle of the whole narration that Shukadeva Goswami says, namely, these cowherd boys, they don't just worship the personality of Godhead, they play with him. they play with him as an equal and sometimes as a superior. And they play and they play and they play and they play and they play. And Krishna likes it, they like it. They don't see him as the worshipable, almighty. They don't see him in majesty at all. It's just the sweetness of their loving dealings. And how did they get that position? That Sukadeva Goswami pauses and says, who can say how many lifetimes of krita, punya, punja. But the punya is not pious activities pile up the pious activities, and now they become cowboys. You can't attain the position of a cowboy. You can't attain the position of pleasing the personality of Godhead, or, as the verse is saying here, fixing the personality of Godhead within one's heart. That's not how it's attained. Piling and piling and piling of piety. So they can't purify themselves. What is their family, what to speak of themselves. So purifying is similar to the punya of the cowherd boys. It's not just material piety. And that's a key message of Srimad Bhagavatam. Let's say it again, because it's this whole section. It's not the result of material assets, education, beauty, strength, knowledge, etc. Jnanam, satyam, dhamma, shrutam. 12. It's not byproduct. Pile all that together. That doesn't equal bhakti. But bhakti surpasses all of that. There's another verse that's in the purport of this verse. It's an important section. It's a bhakti definition of and elaboration of bhakti. This particular verse, Hari Bhakti Sudadaya, is in the purport. It says the same thing. If one is born in a high family, like that of a Brahmana, Kshatriya, or Vaishya, but is not a devotee of the Lord, all his good qualifications as Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya are null and void. Indeed, they're considered decorations of the dead body. That's not nice. I mean, it's nothing wrong to decorate a dead body, but it's meaningless. The decorations of a dead body, the decorations of birth in such families and being qualified like such families are qualified, similar to the Sujata, not Sujata verse. Decorations of a dead body. This same verse, I did some little research, and I expected it would show up in Bhakti Sandarbha, but I didn't find it in Bhakti Sandarbha. I found it in Madhurya Kandamani, in the first chapter, the first shower of Madhurya Kandamani, where the teaching in the first shower is how does bhakti begin? Because Madhurya Kandamani begins with bhakti, so there's faith and association of devotees. That's how bhakti awakens. Little faith plus some association of devotees that are carrying bhakti, and bhakti can awaken. Then there's this section within that chapter that deals with all the other processes of elevation are dependent upon bhakti. Bhakti alone is independent. Say it again. All the other processes for their effectiveness is dependent upon bhakti. Without bhakti, they're not effective. However, bhakti alone is not dependent upon prior qualification. Bhakti alone is independent, and bhakti alone is the only means of perfection. Like big glorification. This is just the first chapter of Madhurya Kandamani. So this verse Bhagavat Bhakti Hinasya jati shastram japas tapa aprapya nasyaiva dehasya mandanam loka ranjanam. Nice verse, nice teaching. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur refers to this verse in his writing. And the section that it falls under is pure bhakti is the only means of perfection. So he, Prahlad, is in the stage of perfection. That's the implication or the indication. And how did it happen? How did perfection come about? Here's the Bhagavad Gita reference from chapter 14. Chapter 14 is the three modes of nature. And after describing this mode, that mode, the other mode, then there's a way to go beyond the modes, which is what Prahlad is teaching. It says there's harmony and synergy between Bhagavad Gita's message and Bhagavatam's message. They're not different messages, but it's more elaborate. In the Srimad Bhagavatam. So, Mam Shayovya Vicharita Bhakti Yogena Stevate Sabhanan Samati Yaitan Brahma Bhoyaya Kalpate. When it comes to the Brahman, Brahma Bhoyaya Kalpate, when it comes to the Brahman platform, if one engages in devotional service, Abhyavichari Bhakti, Abhyavichari, undivided devotional service, full, doesn't desist, doesn't slacken, doesn't get distracted. That's very nice devotional service. Like japa, or you get distracted. What's that like? Japa that you don't get distracted. Shuddhanam. And otherwise it's something else. It's nam, but it's not shuddhanam. Bhakti, but so pure devotional service, this is a statement that we're hearing in the Bhagavatam and from Bhagavad Gita and Hari Bhakti Siddhaya, etc. The very unique position, very special position of bhakti. And that's the gift that Prahlad has. No, Prahlad got it from Narada Muni. Narada Muni is in the assembly. But Narada Muni wasn't the one being harassed, but Prahlad was being harassed. So the personality of Godhead is everywhere. But he appeared for Prahlad to protect Prahlad because he was being harassed, worse than harassed. Attempted murder, multiple. And he protected him. But his appearance was to finish this terrible demon. See, Lord Nrsimha Deva appeared for Prahlad because of his bhakti. He protected him and appeared before all the assembly. Roar. I'm going to tell the story. It's a nice story. Once upon a time, I wasn't a devotee. Once upon a time, I didn't know I was a devotee. I just was like living like a college kid. And I had gone to Boston to look at graduate schools because I was at the stage where I needed to make some applications for graduate school. And Boston was a nice place, nice universities in Boston. So I visited Boston. And I didn't know it because I didn't know anything about Krishna consciousness much, but it was Nrsimha Chaturdashi on that particular Sunday. We drove from where I was going to undergraduate school with some friends, and they had some friends in Boston. I got put up in a loft. In those days, lofts were very popular. It's like big, cavernous open space, loft. Then I got a little room off to the side. And so on the windowsill of the little room that I was staying in was little Jagannath. The carvings, Jagannath, Baladev, Subhadra, sitting on the windowsill. And I knew who Jagannath was. So I said, this is a sign I should go to the temple. I wasn't going to Boston to visit the temple, but Krishna wanted me to go to the temple, so I went to the temple. And it was ecstatic. It was a very special experience in many, many ways, without all the detail. But in that particular period of time, there wasn't a BBT. There was ISKCON, and there was ISKCON Press, and everything was ISKCON. So the ISKCON Press was in that same building that the temple was in Boston. Sant Maharaj was the president of the temple, and there was the ISKCON that pointing upstairs. They lived upstairs. They did the art people, the transcribers, composers. They did all their stuff upstairs, and it was like off limits for the Prabhus, the brahmacharis in the temple, because they had to be undisturbed and be very focused on ISKCON press work. And one of the persons that was in the artist department was Muralidhar Prabhu. Muralidhar, there were three devotees that they had the service of, they were the first ones to hear the little audio cassette. They sat around a room in a room and heard Prabhupada speak Krishna book. First time. Like, Krishna's coming out of the little audio cassette. And then they would discuss and decide what paintings to paint. And Bharadraj was the one who was assigned to make the drawings, line drawings. And then Jadharani filled in the line drawings, and Muralidhar did all the jewels and all the fine finish work. The tears in Krishna's eyes or Radharani's eyes, all that little detail was Muralidhar's service. It was really fine. It was like, so they're all fine. There was their team. That I happened to visit, I didn't find out till later, that the day that I was there was the Nrsimha Deva on Sunday. Just visiting. And one of the practices at that time was they had dramas. It was common, not always, but common to have dramas. And I didn't know what the Nrsimha Deva was, and I didn't know that Muralidhar was behind the curtain because we couldn't see him. He's very tall and has really big eyebrows, and he's a kind of quiet, intense type of person. So he was Lord Nrsimha Deva, hiding behind the curtain. And somebody else was Hiranyakashipu and tried to kill Prahlad and couldn't kill Prahlad and wanted to know where's Vishnu, where are you getting your power? From the same place you are, from Vishnu. Oh, where is this Vishnu? He's everywhere. Oh, is he in this pillow? It wasn't a pillow, it was a curtain. And so he drew a sword. The Bhagavatam says he hit with the pillar with his fist, but he drew a sword and slashed the curtain. And really tall Muralidhar came from behind the the curtain. And the arms waving and, with sound effects. Looking around and everyone's like, it was really good. I'm surprised some people didn't have a heart attack. It was it was scary. And then he, chased Hiranyakashipu around and grabbed him, put him on his lap and pulled out his intestines, and, they pulled out stuff and wore it. And exactly, the different demigods, and then Prahlad comes and he placed his hand on Prahlad's head and he offered his prayers. It was a very nice drama. I mean, it's still in my mind, obviously. So many years ago, so many years later. And what was it? So this back to the verse. What was it that attracted Lord Nrsimha Deva to appear? It's a pastime, but the pastime is to illustrate something. Pastimes have multiple purposes. And one of the purposes is exchange of love, rasa, between the devotee and the personality of Godhead. We heard yesterday, Leela Shakti made this arrangement that the goddess of fortune wouldn't remember through the agency of Leela Shakti. It doesn't say Yogamaya, it says Leela Shakti, because there's a rasa that she was to experience, and according to the commentary, it's adbhuta rasa, or astonishment. She had seen the form, but she had forgotten that she had seen the form, and to enhance or embellish or magnify the primary rasa of conjugal affection. It worked. She was astonished, and everyone was astonished. And then the Leela Shakti continued to do what Leela Shakti does to facilitate the Lord's pastimes, including this little boy speaking what the others could have spoken, but the Lord wanted to hear him speak it. So he did. And the message, Prahlada is giving the message of the section. This is his next, there's two more verses he speaks. 1. The Supreme Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is always fully satisfied in himself. Therefore, when something is offered to him, he's going to be offering some prayers. When something is offered to him, the offering by the Lord's mercy is for the benefit of the devotee. For the Lord does not need service from anyone. It's important. It's part of the science of bhakti. Rendered devotion service is beneficial for the servant. The Lord doesn't need our stuff. To give an example, if one's face is decorated, the reflection of one's face in a mirror is also seen to be decorated. Just like when we put on tilak. You're not seeing the tilak going on your forehead, you're seeing a reflection of the tilak in the mirror. Om Keshavaya Namaha. So that's nice. But you see the reflection. Similarly, the reflection of one's face in the mirror is decorated when offering words or service or something or other. Here's a nice photograph to illustrate the same. So there's a mirror, and there's somebody in the mirror, Chinese lady apparently, and so she's seeing herself in the mirror, and with decorations, etc., etc., etc. But it's just a reflection. So as the reflection is decorated, one's own self is being decorated. It's a nice example, nice metaphor. It's right in the verse, and then Prabhupada elaborates further in the purport. Here's the final verse of this section. Therefore, although I was born in a demoniac family, I may, without a doubt, offer prayers to the Lord with full endeavor, as far as my intelligence allows. Anyone who has been forced by ignorance to enter the material world may be purified of material life if he offers prayers to the Lord and hears the Lord's glories. So this is a summary of all these verses, but it's a summary of what this message of this section is or was. There's no qualification or disqualification, prior qualification, disqualification for bhakti. One who receives bhakti, one who nourishes bhakti, that person is qualified, becomes qualified beyond any material qualification. And material qualifications are necessary to enter into bhakti. It may be helpful, just like the Prabhupada's example of wet wood and dry wood. It's a little easier to ignite dry wood, kindling. It's dry. It ignites more quickly than wet wood, but you can make wet wood into dry and then it'll ignite. Fire doesn't depend upon the medium. So bhakti isn't dependent. The others, this is an important teaching. It's Bhagavatam teaching and it's, the process of bhakti teaching. Bhakti is independent. It's nice. I mean, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur goes into it in detail, just as Krishna's appearances is fully in his hand. He can appear or not appear as he so desires. And if he desires, he can appear in any circumstance, in any place, any way, anything. There's no material prerequisite or material something that forces him to appear. And similarly, in Madhuri Kandamani, he makes a parallel that as Krishna is independent, so Bhakti Devi, who is an expansion of Radharani, is fully independent. She appears when she wants to appear. There's no material prerequisite for Bhakti to appear. And Bhakti is pure and independent. She independently appears and she independently can make something that's not pure. And it's an important teaching about devotional service or about bhakti. And so one of the sources for scriptural support to what is in Madhuri Kandamani, which is Rupa Goswami's writings, being explained, it's in the Bhagavatam. So we just covered that little section. Teachings on bhakti. Compliments of Prahlada. So let's see if there's some discussion. Nice assembly here. You have a lot of friends. Okay. Yes.
One realization.
Yes, please.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for such an empowering talk. So recognizing it fundamentally your jiva, recognizing that jiva is always in a position to do bhakti.
To be what?
To do bhakti. Jiva, understanding that fundamentally you are jiva.
Yes.
And jiva is always in a position to do bhakti. That's the Sodharma. So that's just a very empowering realization, understanding that ultimately you're jiva. There's always an option for you to execute bhakti, and it's your choice at the end of the day. So regardless of any material position or conditioning, just remembering that you're a jiva, you always have the choice to do bhakti. I was just thinking of that as you were explaining this.
I want to add to what you just shared. The but not independent. The option is always there, but we're dependent. We can't just spin the dial and I want, and then the numbers align and you get the jackpot. It's dependent. It's a reflection on your reflection.
Sure, and the dependency is getting mercy.
Yes. Now, fortunate for us, the sun always shines. But sometimes the sun is behind clouds. And sometimes it's night. We don't see the sunshine. So our getting mercy is dependent. But even, wait a while, the cows will move, or the position of the earth will move. There's the sunshine. Were you over here, were you experiencing the loss of electricity this morning? We did. Some big section of no electricity. And then, gosh, I'm dependent upon electricity. There's no electricity. There were some candles, and we just did without electricity. And then the sun came up. We're dependent. I could still do bhakti, but it's because bhakti is merciful. Because Krishna is merciful, he directs his potency, bhakti shakti, be merciful to this devotee. They want me, so give bhakti to them. But she's, she does or she doesn't. So we're dependent. It's just a detail. We're dependent. It's always available because bhakti is merciful, but we're dependent. And don't forget it. Because it's easy to think we're independent. And conditioned tendencies are very strong.
Very strong.
Very strong. Not easy to break. Some are easier and some are not so easy. Conditioned tendencies. The conditioned tendency is to go back to the realization. The free will. We can choose. But I don't know, 50% or 70% or something percent, but not 100%. But the 100% is in our free will option list. Just we don't select that option often. And we're dependent, not in the choice, making the choice. Okay.
Right.
Hi, good. Good morning.
Good morning. On the question of this dependence and is the only independent part that you mentioned. So I'm just wondering, jnana, karma, dana, are they dependent and
Yes.
are they dependent on bhakti?
Yes. Read Madhurya Gandamani. You get all the scriptural references and the arguments, and some might say, so he deals with the Purva stuff. But the answer is yes. They're dependent. Bhakti alone is independent. As far as paths for elevation, they can't deliver transcendence. They can deliver modes of nature, but they can't deliver transcendence. They're dependent.
Thank you very much for your question. My question was, as you mentioned, bhakti can manifest in anyone's life by Bhakti Devi's own grace or by the grace of devotees. So in Chaitanya Leela, Pundarik Vidyanidhi and Kolavitra Sridhar both had bhakti.
They sure did.
But does that opulence that Pundarik Vidyanidhi had, that he had, does that get taken away? Like the name, fame, reputation, does that get taken away? Because all of the kings in Srimad Bhagavatam, their fate was losing what they had most of the time. So I was just wondering.
Say the question again, because it's not clear. You're saying, is it possible for Pundarik Vidyanidhi to lose?
Correct.
Is anything possible? Is it possible to slacken in bhakti, and bhakti, you turn your back to the sun, and do you see shadow? It's possible. It's possible. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, but I was wondering, does it have to?
No, of course not. Ask our host here, he knows. It's a free will choice.
Thank you.
So they're consistently make the right free will choice, then hit a pothole and make the wrong choice. Is it possible? Yes. It's a free will choice. Bhaktivinoda Thakur doesn't use that metaphor, but he speaks of slackening and submission. For sadhana, once the stage of perfection comes, it's different. Now, were they at the stage of perfection? Yes, but is it possible? Yes, it's possible. It's not likely because they're fixed. They're fixed. When you're fixed, you're fixed. But it's possible, even in those kinds of extreme. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
The verse where it was saying that bhakti is not dependent on any of these 12 things, like birth or these qualifications. I was thinking about like Haridas Thakur and how he was of Mohammedan birth, but he wasn't allowed to enter the temple of Jagannath.
I'm not either.
So, was how come he didn't? Because his bhakti didn't proceed and he had love for Krishna.
Well, why was he in that circumstance? Is that your question? Or how did he respond to being in that circumstance? Is that your question?
I think both.
Well, it's just convention. Smartas have a rule, and he was not going to have, fisticuffs with the Smartas. He just, it's fine. He'll tend in a distance. Because that was his place of shelter anyways. And then Jagannath would come once a year, and you could see. So, in bodily conception of life, we just touched this a little bit yesterday, but for Srila Prabhupada to present what he did, it ruffled the feathers of many materialists and spiritualists, the Brahmana community particularly, even his own godbrothers. It ruffled his feathers because Prabhupada did what Bhaktisiddhanta did, and they did so forth and so on. Gave sannyas to persons that weren't born in the right mind, as far as some of his godbrothers were concerned. We'll just speak of others. So there's opposition. On the authority of Shastra and the understanding of the Shastra given in Chaitanya Charitamrita, and there's many examples of Mahaprabhu doing the same thing. Like, how he reciprocated with Haridas Thakur and Kolavich Shridhar, etc., although not by birth qualified. They were honored like anything. So it was unconventional, with opposition, because it was unconventional. Chankasi did what Chankasi did because the Brahmanas were in an uproar. He's destroying our religion. Do something. You're the Zamindar. Stop him. He's destroying our religion. So, opposition. That's just emphasizing it. Opposition. So then, we can expect opposition from the materialists and from the spiritualists. We can expect it. To think otherwise is naive. You expect it. But now what do you do when it comes? Depends on the circumstance. If you live in China, you lay low. You don't go parading around the Red Square. Okay. But up front.
Shingas. I really like the section how Prahlada Maharaj is in a service to do prayers and is considering how he's not qualified. And then he's thinking, Guru has given me some bhakti, trace of bhakti. So I'll approach Nrsimha Deva with that trace of bhakti.
That's it.
Yeah. And then also Krishna is already satisfied, Nrsimha Deva is already satisfied fully. But I'll still do what I can with enthusiasm, endeavor, and intelligence, whatever I have,
Yeah.
or offer it for my purification, like that.
Yes, for his purification. And in addition to what Nara gave him, Brahma asked him, Brahma is the guru of his guru. Brahma asked him, you go forward. He's not going to say no. But how's he going to say yes? Because I'm not qualified. Then the answer is on the order and on the strength of whatever little bhakti I have, the material disqualified anyway. So he's doing, and then comes part 2 of his prayers.
I have one question.
Yes.
So I've been asked sometimes, Lord is already fully satisfied, and we are encouraged do bhakti with the intention to please the Lord. So he's already pleased. What is that we're doing like that? Somebody asked.
Yeah, what's your, how did you answer that question?
I answered it like in terms of love. You're like a father has everything already.
Yeah.
But if you still gives him something, you're exchanging love with them.
Yeah.
So he's pleased.
It's like exactly Prabhupada. A little child gives its father a lust, piece of candy. Father doesn't need a piece of candy. He's got, it's the love. And exactly this very same example. Whoops, one more back, this one. When something is offered to him, the offering by the Lord's mercy is for the benefit of the devotee, for the Lord does not need service from anyone. Next time you ask that question, you can go to that person and say, please read this one.
Thank you.
Okay. Looks like we're finished. You have something further? Okay.
Thank you. How do we make sure we don't take mercy for granted, not lose it? Is it just endeavor for bhakti, or is it more?
Your question is similar to her question. It's different, but it's similar. It's certainly possible that we can slacken. Or seek for mercy, and choosing bhakti and seek for mercy, and then subside. It happens. It happens. So your question is, how do you prevent that from happening? That's your question, isn't it?
Right. How do we
Protect
make the
ourselves.
right choices?
Well, there's a sadhana that leads to sadhya. So sadhana is not just a behavior. There's a behavior, but it's not just a behavior. And what's behind the behavior? Some teaching, and what's behind the teaching? To make the soul reconnected. So there has to be genuine, like in the beginning, faith. And then faith needs to be purified, like anything needs to be purified. And so the faith in that my connection with Krishna become my life. And is it possible, back to her question, to subsist from that? Yes. So your question, how do you protect yourself from subsisting? How do you stay fixed? So good is, it's the same principle of how bhakti begins. You do the same thing again. Adaushadha, sadhu sangha, bhajana kriya. Stay always in good association with faith, engaging in bhajana kriya. Serving the Vaishnavas and serving the name and serving the devotees and serving the. Back to your first statement, by nature, that's who we are. So be consistent with who you are and don't fall asleep. And think, I used to think I am. I'm Mr. So-and-so, and I do this and I do that. And Ra, ra, ra. And that's happiness. It's easy. It happens. You maybe, I don't know what the percentage is, but some percentage of my time, having been practicing bhakti for some number of years, is helping devotees who say, I slackened and now I'm in this zone, that slackening has become my new habit, but my resumed old habits. And they're not wholesome. What do? I started and then I slackened, and now it's a habit. Slackening is a habit. Some percentage of my time is dealing with that kind of a question. So it should be a warning to those of us that are beginning bhakti. Your question: how do I protect myself from that happening? You can do the do's and avoid the don'ts, and it may still happen because it's internal. Take good association, avoid unwholesome association, and continue with your sadhana. But it's not just the behavior; it's the consciousness behind it. The Brahma Jigyasa, I want to know, I want to be connected, and in a real, palpable, vibrant way, and to stay there in good association. So keep the iron in the fire and keep it there. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Nrsimha Deva ki jai. Prahlada Pacifies ki jai. The kids are having a good time and they're not disturbing us. Isn't it nice? I have some Mahaprasadam and I'm going to walk around and distribute.